Tom Hagen.
I actually like this Two Towers less because I think, like, God, it doesn't have Tom Hagen. That's really fun.
Oh, we should
Tony, can you actually bring that up when we review Two Towers?
We're doing it now.
Yeah. We should.
Oh, fuck. Oh,
What if that tease at the end where it's like, she will kill them? It's referring to Tom Hagen. You go into a crypt and Tom Hagen's just waiting there. Will it even be in the car, Sonny? Alright. Hello, welcome.
But Tom Hagen would be like, is it even worth it to destroy the ring? And we'd be like, no, actually. The film would end.
Tom Hagen just holds the ring in his hand, just crushes it.
He'd go up to like Sauron, it's like, you're being such a hot head right now.
No, please. Can if Tolkien was still alive, I'd love him to rewrite the first book so that instead of it's Tom Bombadil living in the forest, it's just Tom Hagen.
He gets benched through Helm's Deep because he's not a wartime consigliere. Alright.
So, we're reviewing the Two Towers now?
Yeah, I ain't gonna say much because I said a lot about Godfather Part 2. And Two Towers is just... You know what it is. It's more Lord of the Rings. There's a big fight at the end. It's pretty good.
Again, continuing with my middle trilogy theory that was in last episode, this does show that sign of being like, there's the thing that they do because this is a film that needs something to happen in it, but it is sort of neither the setup nor the payoff for the overall trilogy.
Yeah,
but it is good.
The second
It is
act.
good.
Yeah. It's pretty much just occupies the space of stuff has to happen before we can have the good, the happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You need to set up more of the bad and sort of more of the kind of idea of this hopeless fight.
Mm-hmm. But I think the strength of this film is in the last sort of act of it with the Ents and the Helm's Deep fight.
Mm.
And I think it kind of drags towards the beginning. But that's just me. What do you guys think?
Well, Ethan, you've seen it 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've seen the last hour 3 times, then you'd be like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my choice.
God, can you imagine if it was like if Gandalf reappearing is him, like, look to me on the dawn of the 5th day. And he comes riding with Shadowfax, and there's the light, and he's just got Tom Hagen behind him. It's just like, we won!
Yeah, I am kind of like... I think I'll be a bit similar to Harry in this podcast. I've been defending Part 2 so passionately in the previous podcast it's tired me out, so I don't really have... And I like Part 2 so much more than this film, so I just don't really... Yeah, I won't have much to say.
They are very different films, so it's hard to switch gears from the slow burn kind of
To the slow
intrigue.
burn.
Well, no, I wouldn't call this a slow burn because it has a lot of action.
It's good.
It's good. That's true.
It's good, like Tom Hagen.
Yeah. I feel... You know what I'm going to say to kick us off? I'm going to say that I think my main issue, maybe not the main one, but something that I'm not a massive fan of that had to happen because of the direction the story takes in, but... My problem with this film and the third film that we'll come to review is that there's a dilemma in splitting the Fellowship in two, where one half, I think, I wouldn't say is miles better, but one half of the Fellowship is a lot more entertaining and interesting to watch, and then the other half is Frodo and Sam.
Yeah.
And it's and you have that. It's in fact it's actually kind of similar to no, it probably isn't because I like Daenerys stuff and Appian stuff a lot, but I mean, but you have that, and in the first film you had this one group and you followed them all, and within that one group you had characters that you'd like a lot more than others. So it wouldn't be as much of a. It wouldn't feel like there was much of a pacing issue because of it.
I do like that it distills one group down to just Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, because I feel like those 3 have like a really good, chemistry together.
Mm-hmm. And they are a powerful trio, and Frodo and Sam are, lovers.
So you get Gollum with Frodo and Sam,
yeah.
who's kind of
the awkward threesome.
Yeah, but I spices that up.
Yeah.
It would be very boring without Gollum.
Yeah, that's true.
But
it's not that they don't really do much other than just have Gollum around.
Exactly, and my thing is more that with Frodo and Sam, a lot of it is just
Sam.
Yeah, it kind of feels like more of the same, and there isn't really much banter between the two. It's just these kind of, yeah, exactly. And what I like about Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas is that is that they quip and they have fun together,
Mm.
and that's what I like about them. With Frodo and Sam, it feels like it's a bit too serious for me, and I know what that means. I know that means that I'm saying that.
Where are the quips?
Yeah, exactly, and it isn't that kind of story when it comes to Frodo and Sam. But I feel like that is more of an issue where I have this one trio and they are very entertaining, and I like all three of them.
Yeah, well,
I would say there are good
It's-
parts to the Frodo stuff.
I'm gonna say it's since I have only seen like the last hour because I ran out of time watching Godfather Part 2. Probably a part of the reason I'm like towards Godfather Part 2. So like the main Frodo, Sam, and Gollum bit that sort of shines in the last hour is the sort of final scene that sort of leads into where you have this very, very nice and good speech between Frodo and Sam. Where
Oh,
they're
so
both,
lovely.
yeah, well they're just
It's like actually moves me.
Sam's there like how they all tell stories of Frodo the courageous and he's saying all these nice things about Frodo, and then Frodo's about the real story is about Sam the brave, and how they'll say how Frodo would never have made it here without him.
Yeah,
And then Sam's just like I was no joke.
being
I'm
serious.
telling the truth, bro. And then I don't normally notice the music, but it's all this like hopeful and wholesome music, and then it just just slips onto a note that, as it holds on, is this more of a note of dread. Then pans over to Gollum and it's like starts with its own sort of sinister theme, sort of just so smoothly transition from that bit where you realise Gollum's gonna do shit, bad shit.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with that because you are right.
Yeah. I can't remember how much the rest of those moments are like for me, and the rest of the films has been a while since I've seen those. But to me, they're the same as that.
It's good, but it lacks the fact that the main kind of bulk of the plot of this film is Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli just stumbling into a D&D plot in media res. They just stumble upon Rohan with a cursed king.
There's a plot here.
Yeah, they essentially this is the Helm's Deep one. Like, the reason you like Two Towers is because Helm's Deep. And the second act of Two Towers is setting up Helm's Deep. They have about 40 minutes of being like, we can't go to Helm's Deep, this will happen. And so like the fact that you meet these characters that Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, who have great chemistry, and their moments earlier on are great. When he kicks the helmet and breaks his foot and goes ah. But they meet these characters and in Rohan, and I think anyway I do. I can't speak for everyone else, but I kind of immediately care about their circumstance, and it does a really good job of getting you invested, so that when Helm's Deep happens, is illogical as a lot of it is. Which, when you think about it, it's just so kind of tense and like satisfying. There's so many punch the air moments, when it really, and it's really funny, and that's why I love Gimli.
Some people complain about Legolas sliding down on a shield while firing bows, but I would say that this is I think the big through line of the film that is about war is about like really bad situations and things looking hopeless. That it does need those moments of like hope. It does need moments of like
that's cool.
Intense heroism, such as Legolas fucking firing bows and then killing people and counting. I do like that.
When I talk about
I know it's not in the books. I doubt Tolkien would write that, but like yeah.
When I talk about the editing in Godfather and Godfather Part 2, how you cut between the young Vito and the growing older Michael, and it contrasts, how different they are. I love the editing where you've got him Legolas slides down a rail, shooting arrows, and then kicks a shield, and then the next shot is Gimli emerging from a puddle. It's like, that's everything you need to tell me about these characters in those two shots.
Yeah.
Just like, that's why I love Gimli so much.
But see, that's my thing, because you have that trio, and as Jonathan said, the chemistry between them is fantastic, and they all complement each other. But for me, with Frodo and Sam, there's a massive imbalance in which one I prefer over the other, and the fact that one of them is this really sort of weak character who, I admit he's got a ring that corrupts him, sure, and that's definitely a burden. But Sam is constantly helping him, and it's that imbalance makes me kind of. it makes me annoyed. It makes me annoyed because I remember to the end of the third film and the books where Frodo is like the hero, and it's like everyone's like, oh, Frodo, he did the greatest thing. He took the ring to Mordor and threw it into the fire. And it just irritates me that Sam doesn't get the recognition that he does deserve.
Yeah.
So every time I see Elijah Wood's
he's like
fucking face,
he's like Mo Green, who was like, there's no statue of him. It's like, yeah, there should be a statue of Samwise Gamgee.
yeah, I mean, I'm not a massive Mo Green fan either.
Yeah,
So.
I don't know who he is. But the thing is, like, with that Gollum, Frodo, and Sam trilogy trio, you've got the sort of Frodo is more trusting of Gollum / Smeagol, whereas Sam kind of sees through it. And you do have the I mean, we've all already seen the trilogy. We all know that Gollum does eventually fuck them over. But I think it is more. It does start with like them being more Frodo being more sympathetic towards Gollum, and there being the great scene where Gollum essentially becomes Smeagol more. He says like, "Go away, I'm gonna trust Master now." And I wanted to have hope for him. I wanted him to have his come around moment. But I think I don't know. I don't want the ending trilogy of the final ending of what's the last one called again? Return of the King to be even longer, where there's a scene where Gollum goes to his friend's grave that he murdered, and
Totally.
it's like,
no one's making you watch the director's cut.
Well, that's the
You're
thing.
adding time.
Did you
to-
watch it? The extended?
I watched quite oddly. I watched half. The first part was the extended cut, and then because I went around Ethan's, I picked up where I left off, and on Netflix has the more condensed version. And I would say that despite the first part I watched, the first trilogy film, what's it called again? Fucking really shit. Fellowship of the Ring. I watched the extended cut then, and I felt I think that's like more of a chase film. I feel like that film has a really good pace to it. They're constantly running. There's constantly a threat right behind them, a threat they're constantly about to run into. And I think that this one, it lacked that. Like, it sort of felt a bit more meandering, a bit more like Frodo, like, oh fuck, we're lost, we're just wandering about, in Mordor,
Yeah, especially with Frodo, Sam, and Gollum, it feels like a bit of a middle chapter, kind of a slog. Like they have to get to Mordor, and then they get taken away, and then they've got to get it. Kind of
exactly.
It definitely drags a little. I do agree that's but it's definitely it drags more than the other subplot. Like, I mean, I like the end.
But having said that, the whole purpose of being taken away to Osgiliath is you get properly introduced to Faramir, and then the third film he becomes quite an important character. Well, I mean, what makes that moment in the third film so powerful when Pippin is singing, and that riders those riders from Gondor go into Osgiliath basically into their death. What makes it so powerful is Faramir's there with them, and he made the decision to forfeit his life in the second film for these hobbits basically, and that's what that scene serves. It gets you introduced to Faramir, and originally it makes you not like him because of the fact that he is basically kind of he's
making the same mistake that his brother did. Right?
Yeah.
I like that he comes around. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so I think in this. Oh, actually, no, you probably do. I was about to say you don't know who his father is in the second film, but do you? I don't remember. Yeah. But does he ever say, "Oh, my father's Denethor"? I can't even remember. Do you know? Do you just assume that he's someone who's he's related to Boromir, sure? But do you think that he's like? Well, I guess he's in a position of power because
he's it's stated that he's the brother of Boromir.
Yeah.
If you're following your logic through, you should probably work out that he's some of the sort of implications there.
This is one of the things where I might have just missed a massive section of the film by being stupid. But do we actually get much of like an introduction to Theoden's son that starts the film and he's like dead? Is that
no? I
first
think
film?
he's just. I think Theoden's son is just dead at the beginning of the film. So I think you get a bit of moments in the books maybe with the son, but I think
nice rather than more Frodo stuff. Setting up the stakes to Theoden, dying.
I remember all of that. Yeah.
I do really like the king being uncursed
Oh, that's just
Yeah, the transition shot of him like suddenly drinking a glass of water. You know, his face rehydrates like he hasn't drunk anything in like 20 years. You know, I think that's really good, and like the sort of arc he goes on from being like cursed to being like this. The moment of doubt when he's in the fortress of like, oh, it won't hold, you know, and then it's like they ride out at the end. It's really good.
Mm. Yeah, because he has to wake up to like, my son's dead, my realm's under attack, I've screwed up, I'm failing my people.
Tell me, what do you guys think of the Arwen Aragorn stuff? Do you think that's padding, or do you actually like that kind of stuff?
I don't feel like it takes up much time.
It's good that they actually have like a female character who has like lines of dialogue.
I don't know, I think Eowyn's a good character, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, from what I gather, Eowyn and Arwen are pretty much inventions of the film, because the book just didn't have any of that shit. Like,
that's possible. Yeah, I can't remember.
But I mean,
Arwen is in the books, but she's not the one that.
Yeah, as in Arwen's in the books and Eowyn's in the books, but I don't know if they quite have the role that they do, where they actually do shit in the film.
It's one of my favourite line readings is Liv Tyler, Then It Is a Good Dream. I don't know, I feel like, I do like that stuff. Obviously, I mean, I don't like Hugo Weaving, I'm not sold on Hugo Weaving being, like, and that, I don't buy him as Elrond.
Why not? I think his performance is really good.
Because I always consider his performance is good. I can't in my mind. Is that that tweet about Jessica Biel? Not if you see Jessica Biel in a period piece, you're like, sorry, your face is seen texting. I can't buy this. I'm just like, Hugo Weaving, you're not an elf. I can't. I just think in my mind. I can't.
Yeah. This is probably the first thing I saw him in.
Yeah, that's my feeling. It's like, for me, it's like, hey, it's Elrond. He's a bit out of place.
It's interesting that you said that, because to me, Hugo Weaving, it will always be Agent Smith. That's like what I
for me, he's a villain. He just looks like a villain, and like I don't know, like he doesn't really work as this kind of. I feel like on the page,
he's not like an outright villain, but he is in some sense like representative of what's her name again? Aragorn's wife. Arwen. He's representative of her struggle that she has to give up, essentially going into, I don't know what it's a metaphor for again.
I mean,
afterlife.
He's an antagonist at moments.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of, he's like, men are weak. Like, he's not.
At the same time,
give him a cape and he is the villain.
At the same time, he just wants his daughter to live forever. And
that is true. That is true. He is a lot more sympathetic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but so hang on. So who could you imagine playing an elf then, but not Hugo Weaving?
I don't know, like Gerald from Peep Show. I'm like, he's an elf. Like Kate Blanchett, she's basically an elf in real life. But like Hugo Weaving, don't buy it.
So to be the person playing Haldir,
Haldir's a good elf.
Yeah, he just doesn't look very. He looks like a haughty elf. Like I kind of dig that.
When we watched it at uni, our big debate was Haldir hot? I was like, for me, he just so isn't.
He's not.
I can't wait to have these sorts of debates next year.
I mean, I do really like the fact that the elves come into Helm's Deep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that's not in the books or not in that way.
I don't
know why I turned to you. I know you've read them, but you've like forgotten.
No, I'll tell you one thing. I definitely remember so well. Yeah. I remember this so well because I remember rereading this line over and over again because I couldn't believe this happened, because it's just complete. It just doesn't happen in the films at all. But do you know who Gandalf arrives with over that hill at the end? He arrives with the Rohirrim and the Ents. Like the Ents chuck down boulders at the orcs at Helm Deep. Like, I'm not kidding. I was like, wait, what?
We haven't even talked about Gandalf coming back from the dead.
I feel like I do know that because
when you watch them,
they don't really explain it. They kind of just go like, there are gods and they brought me back.
Yeah.
I mean, his role in the universe is he literally is a servant of the gods.
You just have to go with it. Like for me, as someone who doesn't really like fantasy, isn't that invested in like, oh, Tolkien meant this with this. I just want to watch them as like good kind of fun films. I do always just go, I'm just gonna have to go with this. Like, sure, he's alive and he's more powerful.
I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to like he won the fight and walked away. Like,
I want Ian McKellen back. And like he's so great when he comes back and he pretends to be going off the ground. He's like, you wouldn't rob an old man with his walking stick. And then that reveal where he rips off the cape and just it's so brilliant.
Really good.
Yeah.
But it seems like that when they introduce him, they they make it kind of vague as like, is it Saruman?
Oh yeah, I quite like that twist.
Yeah.
It's like the Yoda twist.
Yeah, no, I do like the way they sort of treat Gandalf, and his whole kind of, because the kind of the theme of his sort of journey in a way is that he spends like, because he's a very uncertain wizard, and like, you know, he relies on Saruman a lot, and so having Saruman turn, he feels a lot more in the shit. He is just kind of the hermit wizard who does his little things with hobbits, and now he's kind of got to save the world. And so he sort of knows he's going to meet his doom in Morin sort of goes. But it's kind of, at this point, you have the much more confident Gandalf that comes out, having like bested the thing that should have defeated him. He's kind of got more wind in his sail after this sort of point.
He's almost a different character, isn't it? Like he hears the name Gandalf and he kind of is taken aback.
Yeah, you do get the sense that he's like lost a bit of his memory, I guess. Then he's like, Gandalf, that was what they called me, you know.
I could watch it. Ian McKellen is just such a lovely man. I love just Ian McKellen, and so Viggo Mortensen as well as Aragorn. I just that character is annoyingly perfect, you know. Like even though he does make the fatal mistake of this film of letting Wormtongue, having a bit like a Wormtongue as well. Like, that's insufferable. That's the rest of the film. Is letting him go is such like a big mistake because that kind of with Helm's Deep they make nothing but mistakes.
That's true, but I think one of the through lines of Lord of the Rings is like the enemy is like hate and all that, and frequently the good guys make the choice to not kill someone when they don't need to. Like they do it with Wormtongue, they do it with Gollum.
I mean, it's probably the best line from the Hobbit films is Gandalf talking to Bilbo, sort of going, some people who have died deserve life, and some people who deserve death have lived. Can you give it to them? I feel
like that line.
That's something always to bring up with like.
Because Tony watched he's watched the extended editions. I feel like with Saruman and Wormtongue and all that kind of plot, and I know in the books they attack the Shire, which is very dumb, and I'm glad it didn't happen in the films. But because the non-extended editions, they don't get any resolution, right? This is the last you see of Saruman now. He has a scene in the extended edition of Return of the King where he gets killed, and Wormtongue gets a final scene. But according to the films, this is the last you see of them.
Yeah, why they decided to not have Saruman die on screen?
They fell out. Christopher Lee and Peter Jackson fell out. Basically, they just couldn't agree on stuff, and they kind of it was very much spiting him.
I don't know. You need a lot of bravery to not let Christopher Lee do what he wants.
It's the line that he said. I think they were shooting his death scene where he just went, "That's not what a dying man sounds like."
Yeah, it's like a man being stabbed in the back wouldn't do that. You do this, and it's like Christopher Lee has killed like a lot of people.
And so if you're shooting him, that's not.
I've seen Peter Jackson chomp down on that carrot and throw that spear though. He's a competent guy. Wait, I was going to mention...
Hang on, really quickly. Can you also mention, this might be a third thing, or one of the two things you were going to mention, that line that Sam says in Osgiliath that's like a direct reference to something in the books. You mentioned it, I can't remember what it was.
That was Johnny.
Oh, Jonathan, maybe.
It's one of the few bits I know that is definitely not in the books is Frodo and Sam ending up in Osgiliath. And it's often seen as a homage to that. When Sam says the line, by rights we shouldn't even be here, whilst they're standing in Osgiliath, which is a fun little moment.
Yeah, right. Gollum, obviously, the special effects I'd say are almost perfect in this film. I have a few little.
I know you have your issue with the green screen in the end.
For early 2000s, it's pretty great. But Gollum as a fully CGI character is so brilliant, and Andy Serkis just brings that character to life. And the scene where it's a reverse shot with Gollum and Smeagol, where it's just flipping the camera angle between them, and then you get you don't have any friends. It's just like it's such a great line.
You're right, I did mention to Tony yesterday when we were watching it how brilliant the camera is at manipulating what you see of Gollum, the way that it moves, and it shows you which side of Gollum is doing the speaking. I think it's so clever.
A slightly amusing and terrifying thing about the leader in Turkey, Erdogan.
Oh yeah,
Because
is that the Stephen Colbert thing?
Is this another thing that's going to have to
Like-
get cut?
No,
it's-
it's Erdogan. Like tried someone was tried for comparing him to Gollum.
Yeah, they put up a like meme picture where like a picture of Erdogan next to a picture of Gollum for like multiple moments, and he does pull similar expressions, and it got taken to court basically, and then basically they got some Lord of the Rings nerds to come in and basically say, actually, in those shots, it's Smeagol who's the good one.
Yeah. Stephen Colbert, he kind of is like a big kind of Tolkien guy. He kind of did a segment on his show about it.
That's really good.
Oh wait, all right. So Lord of the Rings, I love it a lot. I like it in the same way I like Halo. That I don't engage with it on an incredibly deep level, but on a surface level, I enjoy these films so much, and I revisit Lord of the Rings at least twice a year. I'm getting to the point now where I need to kind of stop watching them for a bit because I watch them too often.
I need to watch them more.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun with them. It's just like they're funny. You know, you've got the classic good versus evil. They're entertaining, and with the funniness, there's so many like iconic lines. Like pretty much everything Gimli says is iconic. You got they're taking the hobbits to Isengard. That absolutely
Nobody tosses a dwarf.
exactly. Also, the best line, which I only discovered this time, is "Break the dam, release the river," which is like the best thing.
Now,
to
your
say
favourite moment is when
before taking a piss.
Your favourite moment is when that ent is on fire. He dunks his head in it.
Oh yeah,
remember that.
that's also great. I watched this one in 3 parts, which I kind of do regret. I watched like an hour a night because my meme with Lord of the Rings is every time I watch them I change my order. So Two Towers I think is going to come bottom of my ranking this time, just because I felt I had a few more problems with it than I normally do. There were a few like emotional moments that didn't really work for me this time. You know, I felt like some of the Rohan stuff I actually felt like a little bit rushed, where I normally like come into that like fully engaged. So I obviously Return of the King is like a meme because it never fucking ends. But I have a feeling that I'm going to like Return of the King more than Two Towers. And I think I've pretty much said everything I've got to say about this film now. I'm not going to score it though. I'll wait till...
Yeah. It was on a one of the things I've said of more than I've heard been said about the potentially some of the other things you can read from it is ideas of the One Ring sort of being analogy for like depression or something, and sort of the toll that it takes on Frodo, and the sort of the need he sort of then needs for a character like Sam to sort of help him through, which I sort of almost brought up when you're like, where's the statue for Sam? It's like, well, it could be doing a message of, you know, sometimes it isn't put on a pedestal what you do for your friends, but it doesn't mean it's not courageous. Yeah, so there's some deeper readings and moments that you can take from it, but then like Tolkien is the like famous one about what's the...
Oh yeah, he famously said that he hates the idea of allegory or something. He denies that it was like... Because I think someone said something like, oh well, I mean, your stories are obviously influenced by World War II or something, and he was like, yeah, but don't mistake it for being allegory. I'm not deliberately referencing it.
Yeah, it's why he hated C.S. Lewis?
CS GO. Oh, C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Golotto.
Counter-Strike.
Pro Syndicate. T. Martin.
That massive allegory. Yeah, just because the Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe is just rehashing the Bible, and he just hated that, despite also being Catholic or Christian or whatever.
I swear that the thing that I heard is that they fell out because The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe has Santa Claus come in.
Well, that
Keep
could
this out.
I don't know if
Which would be really funny in Lord of the Rings.
I don't know if you three know this, but there's a pub in Oxford that we always go in every time we go there. And it has pictures of C.S. Lewis and Tolkien together, because they actually did use to hang out when they were younger.
Yeah.
There's some brothers on the wall. Sorry.
Why are there no elves on this wall?
In terms of like talking about death of the author and like they can mean things the author didn't intend, this film, and more importantly Return of the King, they are gay love stories. It's not even a joke.
No.
The relationship between Frodo and Sam is so much in all but like name a romantic relationship.
No,
And like
I would
I feel like it's almost cowardice by the filmmaker to not have them end up together.
No, I would say the not the opposite of that, but I would make the statement that people commonly ask they want strong female characters in films, right? And I would say this is one of the few examples of strong male characters, right? And I mean that in the sense of they aren't just strong because they're dudes with swords that kill things. They're strong because it frequently shows like compassion between friends in like an
Fellowship.
empathetic
More
way.
feminine strength.
Yeah, well, yeah,
That is what's going
it's not that it's. I could see that wanting to see it as like an actual relationship. For me, it's more actually showing just a friendship between men in a way that isn't just like two dude bros just like fist bumping and then killing things together. It actually shows that they care about each other as friends, you know, in like a good way, in like an empathetic way. And I could see why you would say that, okay, well if what a good friendship would look like if people weren't restricted by, you know, so harsh masculine, like don't ever have emotions stereotypes.
There are a lot of friendships, I think, in the film, like Merry and Pippin and Aragorn and most kind of male characters that are almost like that.
I love the bro hugs he does, you know.
Yeah,
I feel like even those relationships aren't quite as strong or concrete as the one between Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, they're always like people like joked at the time like about Frodo and Sam kind of being like lovers and the way they kind of talk to each other. And I do take a point that it is good to kind of have different male friendships. But like I don't know, when I see those scenes together, like, and I feel like the actors are playing it like they're so deeply in love. And like I have this Return of the King has like 20 endings. Why couldn't it have one of those endings where they end up together?
Because it's
just I don't know.
If Frodo ends up with Sam, then who does Rosie go
But
to? Most important character in all three films.
Rosie is the Night King.
But it almost feels like they. Obviously, I can't comment what the filmmakers would do. But I feel like they almost were playing up to the fact they were going to end up together. But then they were like, no homo at the end. Like they're having literally on the mountain, Return of the King. Sam's just like, oh, I miss Rosie. Like who? They just kind of feels like they invented.
I suppose Rosie is like the idea that like you leave people behind when you go to war, you know, that kind of.
Yeah, but I mean, the Shire is that.
I think my argument is that Tolkien didn't write those characters to end up falling in love, so I don't see why the films should do this.
Yeah, and I think that's almost why they don't, because they kind of got to the point where if they didn't have an end, if they were just writing it like you should write like a TV series where you just like will take it from where the characters are now and find like a logical conclusion for them, they probably would end up together. But because they had the ending of the book to kind of fulfill, they're setting something up, and it's like with the guy, they suddenly just divulge and be like, oh no, Frodo goes off and Sam ends up married and happy. It's just, I don't know.
I feel like you can have a really close relationship that doesn't have to be romantic.
No, and the film has a lot of those, but I feel like theirs, I personally, I think
I wouldn't call it romance.
There's a lot of
or lust between them.
There's definitely a romance to it. Like the way Frodo says, "Oh Sam," it's just like.
Just because they're hobbits.
I don't know. I'm going to enforce this reading whether people like it or not.
This is the gay agenda.
And I just read both at the same time, really.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I don't think.
I wouldn't be against it, but
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have an issue.
I just think I'd like the film more if that's the direction they went. And like, gosh, how many people have been fucking pissed off at them as well. Like,
yeah,
this is so good.
I don't think the Return of the King feels anticlimactic because they take that turn back to how Tolkien originally had his books written.
No, it definitely not like it's anticlimactic. I think the problem is it's too climactic. There's too many endings. Like you can just end on Aragorn becoming king, and like it's Return of the King.
Yeah, but
the title card. You've done it.
Having said that, I feel like the final shot of Sam going back home to Rosie is great because it shows a complete loop of the journey starting. From
you have to watch that bit when they go.
Oh, that's hilarious! I love that scene. It's fucking great. Yeah?
I'm just imagining the final scene is literally just Aragorn by himself, just like walking into whatever like the king's chambers are, just like looking around, going, "I've returned." It just cuts to black.
Oh my god! No, do you know what I really would have wanted? Right, I really would have wanted a 9-hour trilogy where instead of Frodo and Sam being played by Elijah Wood and whoever it is, they get Spike Lee and the guy who plays Sal and put them together and force them to take a ring to Mordor and see all of the Those great moments that would ensue as a result.
I don't know. We'll definitely get to Return of the King, because in extending it, you made the point about like Tolkien after World War II, right? Like even after the war's over, you can't really go back to the way it was. Like Frodo he can't. He's almost got PTSD. Yeah. He's kind of, and also like you get that train spotting thing where it's like, oh, writing a book. What are you gonna call it? The Lord of the Rings.
Jonathan, that's probably one of the worst things about that final episode of Game of Thrones. Sam just writes a book called A Song of Ice and Fire. Did you know about that?
Yeah, it doesn't fucking include the hand of multiple different kings.
I do love that. Tyrion just isn't in it.
Fucking Master of Coin being fucking that guy, Bronn.
Guys,
Game of Thrones is actually way worse than Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, to be fair, that was my
No,
opinion
I
watching.
don't know.
Lord of the Rings is very simple. Like that I think because
Game of Thrones is like political
it's just,
intrigue,
it's
story.
Just, but it's just good versus evil, right? Like you don't
I
don't look at the orcs and be like, I wonder what their motivations at this point are. It's so obviously forces of good and evil, light and dark. True detective.
I know you would say that like, oh, it looks like it's just the good guys versus the evil guys, but I wouldn't say that means that it doesn't have like a deep themes, something to say about the nature of war. Just because it frames the enemy as this unstoppable evil, I think that is a commentary.
And the way the enemy kind of just completely destroy the environment, and like the way technology.
The fact that it is also not just about good and evil, but it is more interestingly about free will versus the idea of fate. It is about the idea of technology versus nature and all that stuff.
And this one very much is about hope and storytelling, like and the purpose of stories, and it's essentially a second act about middle chapters of stories still being written. Like what will your story end up like? But you can. This is probably contradicting things I've said before, but with Lord of the Rings, I feel like I almost don't have to engage on that level because it's so entertaining. It's like you can just
I normally
on the surface. Yeah, it's so simple. Like if you just
even though it seems surface level like good versus evil, the evil, ugly looking orc guys versus cool elves and cool humans. I would say that, and Game of Thrones looks more like it's political intrigue. It's harder to follow. I'd say that Lord of the Rings does have its own complex things going on.
When this is a meme. When earlier we mentioned about quotable lines, we haven't mentioned the best line. Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
Yes. Classic.
That's a good one.
We haven't had anything but maggot bread for 3 stinking days.
What I love is
I just love the orcs so much.
the fact that the orcs have a word for like menu implies they have this idea of restaurants. I just
No, but I do love the orcs in these films because I know that in the Fellowship, I think I might have mentioned this when we did Fellowship of the Ring, but in Fellowship they speak like an alien, like almost like an alien language. Like you don't understand it.
I think you're
in this one
just Cockney.
Yeah, no. In this one, they like speak English, and in the third film, they just are Cockney. It's like, do you remember that scene in the third film where the boats arrive into Minas Tirith? There's just that guy. I can't remember what he says, but it just is the most like London Cockney thing I have ever heard. I'll have to find it because it just is an amazing line.
Ooh, Johnny, you're going to say something, but wait, you still want to?
We've moved on from that point.
Okay, obviously this. I don't want to call out a book or film for being like problematic that came out ages ago, or whatever. But like the fact that they, obviously, what the orcs meant to symbolise, fine. We can move on from that. They're just orcs. We don't have to read nothing into that. But like having like men who kind of resemble like Middle Eastern men to turn to Sauron's side.
That might be more of a casting issue, though.
Yeah, I think that was what was intended by the text.
No, actually,
he is racist, by the way.
Well, okay, fair enough. Probably, maybe. But the thing is, like, the fact that Gimli is Scottish is a casting decision, right?
Yeah.
Like, they were originally, like, all the dwarves were, like, more Arabic, kind of Middle Eastern inspired.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure that's true.
But then would you say, I mean, I know George R. R. Martin wrote the books, but would you say that the critics of Game of Thrones are racist because pretty much everyone is white apart from like the outside?
My point was saying how George R. R. not that one.
Yeah, not that one. The other fantasy writer.
Like, it's his description of. It's not in the sort of way of, you know, Dawn have got their own culture and you explore there, but, you know, it's only like a seventh of the world, like less than that when you get an Essos, but then it also is a diverse. No, literally, like with Tolkien,
Sure.
it's like these faraway, disgusting humans.
These
with
dark-skinned orcs,
Dark-skinned,
and then
yeah.
just having like
Oh,
essentially
that's
like.
not great.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just feels weird. Like if you're symbolising just these orcs to be evil, which is fine because you can disassociate that with its kind of real world implications. But then also being like, yeah, also the Muslims of this world just join them, just throwing that in there too. I'm just being like, okay, you're not kind of gonna update that. You're just gonna take it.
So that's not the best thing. But
I mean, I can move past it, but
exactly.
it's
I
worth
would
commenting on.
I would compare it to something like recently I tried reading the Joseph Conrad book Heart of Darkness, which is what Apocalypse Now is loosely based on. Actually quite heavily based on, and it's for that book it's more because the whole idea is it's about this person who sails up the Congo River during like a colonialist Africa, and it's very, very unfair, and it's quite difficult to read some of his descriptions of the native African people. But I would say it's very much of its time more than I think he's actually a racist.
But if you were
I know
gonna,
this is a lot more.
if you were going to update that and make a film version of that, you wouldn't keep the kind of you'd almost not whitewash history, but you would like update.
Having said that, I could definitely be wrong, but I don't think it was a conscious choice of Peter Jackson. I think maybe he just wanted to stay true to the books, or he just didn't even realise what he'd done. What they called the Haman or something like that.
The Haradrim and the Easterlings.
No, they have really shit
they're
names.
two
They're like
different-
the Easterlings and the Southrongs.
All right, this film is about the Iraq War. Okay.
Guess what those two towers are, boys?
Yeah, the US government, the US were like, "Can you change the title?" And the was like, "No." And they're like, "You can't do this after 9/11." And they were like, "Yes, we can." And then looking back, obviously they could. But at the time, releasing a film at 2002, releasing a film to cinemas called The Two Towers, you could understand why there was a little bit of pushback. It's about the Iraq War.
yeah, but no, I mean.
It's like anything that came after the Iraq War. You know, you can't criticize the Iraq War because it led to all of the good things that happened after it.
When we do Starship Troopers, you know how much of the Iraq War I'm going to bring up in that. You know, I'm going to deliberately pick Vice so we can talk about it.
Do Bush.
I actually think Vice would make a really good podcast if we all talked about that.
We all have like the same political opinions, and we'd all pretty much agree on.
You know,
we could bring in Stefan. Yeah, you talk about how biased the film is.
We can be the devil's advocate.
Yeah, we could.
As long as we specify.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to make sure that beforehand we bring Olivia Flood in to make sure she picks what side we have to fall on, whether we like it.
We have to be like, all right, how did the Iraq War influence the NHS?
This is why she hates us. Alright. Do you have anything else to say about the Two Towers?
Before the Iraq War,
Sorry, I ran out of things to say and have a meme.
Yeah. Because the Easterlings have some of my favourite aesthetic in the Lord of the Rings, being sort of different. They're kind of golden thorn like armour.
Yeah.
It's just something I really dig. And
Yeah.
for me,
Are the Easterlings the Haradrim? Is that who you're talking about, or are they
They're
they're
the ones
two
with the
separate
elephants.
groups.
The Oliphants.
The Oliphants.
I get it wrong with the sort of different groups, but I think the Haradrim, are the ones with the Mumakil. They're more like southern desert.
Yeah. They're the ones that I quite like the design of. Just I think the Mumakil are just they're so fucking cool. That's why Minas Tirith is so great. But that's sometime later.
But they
And then
literally. Oh, sorry.
It's the Easterlings from Rune, who have the sort of golden armor, and they're the ones who are like marching into the Black Gate.
I see. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
There is nuance in the messaging, but like we've argued about this with Stars in the past, but in the Lord of the Rings case, there is pretty much objective evil in Sauron. Like, there's no nuance. Like, Sauron's got some good points actually. He just symbolises objective, like fascism, everything wrong and evil, and having like just those men just side with like objective evil.
I mean,
it is terrible.
I don't think that's even an unfair comment, because that's kind of what the whole World War II parallel is, is that's how they.
But they almost have
that's how they saw it.
They almost have no reason for it. They just they are evil.
Yeah. But half of
racist.
Sauron's thing is kind of his seduction and his ability to just
Yeah, that's what I read.
He fools people into doing what is
Yeah.
against their interests.
And I mean,
they
they
do
do
that.
I don't think the orcs
But they never
have
get,
like a
like,
bank
redeemed.
account where they get
Yeah,
paid
yeah,
into.
no.
I'm sure
I
they just
mean,
do
no,
it
I
as
mean
they
like
are.
the other guys.
But yeah, I'm sure they have some deal.
Yeah.
before.
But my ongoing
The
feeling
Sauros.
in
is
that deal.
because when I see the Easterlings and the Haradrim with this interesting sort of bringing in a very different feel to the Lord of the Rings world, I want to explore it. That's one of the big areas of Lord of the Rings that I want to know more about, and sort of
What, the
see
eastern
how
part
they
of
could,
Middle-earth?
they
Yeah.
could have,
Yeah, what's
how
the
this sort of thing
explanation?
ended up, and I like do sort of that sort of younger, more innocent me sort of go, interesting side. I want to know. Well, still now as well, but now sort of realizing the whole it is a bit shit that they just.
At least it's not like.
I
it's
would
interesting that
say
you
it's
think about,
interesting because it makes it does have like in the face of objective evil, a lot of things do happen that aren't as obvious as all the humans obviously band together and fight it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Because
there's
although
definitely
that
that
does happen
things
a
about
lot.
the corruption of man in the face.
Yeah,
of
it shows that some people like Wormtongue, are fighting for their own power, like Saruman, and it shows that some people like, we don't want to risk. Even Theoden, who's like the good guy, he says like, we don't want to risk all-out war right now. Like, even in the face of like pure evil, they don't want to fight it like head on. They want to distance it. And there are some people who were, seduced by the dark side, whatever you want to call it, and go join the baddies.
Yeah. It's just that having like an objectively like Sauron is just the bad guy because he is evil and he Mordor is a big dark tower with like a volcano. Like
I mean,
I don't even think that's bad. I think
No,
that's-
no,
I don't
because
think so.
it's
I
the
thought you were making a
simplicity of it.
complaint. Yeah, I thought you were making
No,
a
I
complaint
like
about
the
how it's
simplicity.
overly simplistic.
No, I love the simplicity, but because of that simplicity, just you can't really have the nuanced take of like some men join them when it's been coded by the film as just like the brown men are bad, which is kind of what I take out of it anyway. I think we've done this point now. Sorry, I just thought it's worth bringing up.
Yeah, I think obviously these are films and we are reviewing the films, but do you think it's important to like think about something like the Silmarillion when you're talking about the Lord of the Rings and how Sauron actually does have a bit more of a backstory?
I'm not thinking about the books when I talk about. I'm thinking about what is shown on film.
Yeah, and I mean, the
Which is fair
Silmarillion
enough.
is like I tried to read
And
it and I died.
You bring in what you kind of have consumed.
It's like an
Like-
entire book of Dark Souls item descriptions.
yeah, because the Silmarillion gets kind of weird in the way that all the events that happen basically in the forthcoming books is kind of just a song being sung by the gods that's already been scripted. So there's a massive feeling of everything is fate. Like you're not the masters of what happens here. Literally, just you're just characters in a story that is being sung. Is kind of like what this whole thing kind of is when you get the Silmarillion involved.
Yeah.
With these, I'm not even trying to consider like Tolkien's kind of wider philosophy or anything to do with that. I'm just trying to consider what is the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings? What does that have to say? What is that bringing? Being an adaptation of kind of one of the most influential works of fantasy literature ever. Like obviously it's gonna because what might seem like cliches or simple things. I think we said this with Fellowship. It was like the first example of that being done. So it almost gets a free pass in that sense. So like when I talk about the simplicity, it is, but that's what's the strength. You could show anyone Lord of the Rings, anyone who hasn't had who isn't literate in fantasy and like things, and they might not understand everything, but they're going to enjoy these films. They're so well constructed and well made and well performed, well shot. There's almost nothing wrong with them apart from some CGI which may be dated in like 10 or 20 years. They're pretty much perfect, all of them.
Some of those background Treebeard end characters look a bit dodgy.
That's the one thing I kept saying is it's when it's Merry Pippin on Treebeard and I'm moving around, you can kind of see you can almost see the green screen, which is but Gollum's great.
It felt fine to me, but I'm
it's
quite
not
blind
bad.
to CGI, so
Yeah,
I mean,
it looks better than the fucking Spider-Man suit looks in Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019, which is saying a lot.
I would say that I really like the Treebeard stuff because I wouldn't go so far as to say like, oh, just because there's objective evil, it's not really making a nuanced stance, because there is the sort of the the take of looking at the Ents as representing a sort of faction that is separate but doesn't see themselves under immediate threat. So it's things like, oh, this isn't really my fight. And then Frodo coming in, and it's not Frodo fucking being racist to hobbits. Merry and/or Pippin coming in and saying, I literally don't know, coming in and saying like, no, this is everyone's fight. You're a part of this world, aren't you? And then them realizing like when the fight comes to them, like, oh fuck, we need to do something about it.
But
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, but the Ents got involved and Switzerland didn't, so it can't be an allegory for robots.
I mean, that's kind of probably what he says about allegory not being an allegory.
But it
it's not one to one.
Yeah, that's what he
riffs off that sort of the they came for the socialists first, and I did nothing. Then they came for whatever the next group is,
and
I did
came for the
nothing.
gamers, and there was no one left to stand with me or whatever it is.
Have you seen
They came for the
Jonathan's,
gamer
like Netflix recommended? He just on one of them is just like
oh yeah, Johnny's Netflix.
Shows for gamers.
Shows for gamers.
Remember the Netflix algorithm thinks you're a gamer?
God, they're really pandering to
no
minority
idea
groups
how.
now, aren't they?
I think it's because Jonathan watches a lot of anime, so they just assume he plays a shit ton of JRPGs and stuff, so he's a bit of a gamer.
I don't know if you'll agree with me here, Ethan, but the whole Ents thing reminded me of Casablanca. It's basically the film Casablanca is about America should do something in World War II. And like all the Ent stuff is essentially like passive, like doing nothing in the face of war is kind of inadvertently supporting the oppressor of that war.
I mean, if what you've just said is true, then you are right. But I don't remember Casablanca well enough to remember if it's to do with America.
And then to tie in with The Godfather Part 2 of that's when they talk about Pearl Harbor happening on Pop's birthday.
Yeah,
Tom Hagen's there. God, can you imagine Tom Hagen at the end movie?
Should we
be the one reasonable guy being like, guys, we should fight Sauron.
Yeah. I think
Tom Hagen, like, he's advising Sauron. That's where the nuance comes in. Sauron's more of course like, Sauron, what are you doing? You can't wipe everyone out. Sauron, like, I don't wipe everyone out, Tom.
This is my enemy.
I think from now on, we can realise when we've pretty much said everything we have to say about something if we just start talking about Tom Hagen for no reason.
Yeah, I feel like
honestly,
more we could have said, but we've become sidetracked by these memes. You know what's really cool? The Elven Rope.
Well,
that's the point.
What, the film that Sam had?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's like, oh, that's one of my nods.
So when I think about some of the things that have been memed by us four, like when I originally when I originally saw Tom Hagen in the first film, I would never have thought that he'd just become like a joke.
It's
not a joke. I like the character.
Alright, what about the gay subtext of Tony being in love with Tom Hagen? Are the filmmakers
We
gonna
just
follow
friends.
Okay, let's end this, please. It's good
I
scores.
wish I was friends with Tom Hagen.
Can we get scores?
Oh yeah, shit, yeah, scores.
9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think in compared to the first one, I think the first one had a better sense of momentum. There are parts I like about, the Frodo sub-story. I do think that the Gollum/Smeagol, sort of internal conflict is interesting. It's a shame that he does fall to the dark side, which, happens at the end of this film. But I do like the fact that Frodo tries to believe in him because he sees his own struggle with the ring in Gollum, and I think that adds a lot of depth to his character. I like the action scenes. I think the stuff with Theoden is good. I think I'll agree with Ethan. I think he's a solid 8 out of 10.
Thank Tom Hagen.
And I'm gonna go for a 9.
Cool.
34.
Who's the Tom Hagen of Lord of the Rings? Who's like the voice of reason?
Sam. It's obviously Sam.
It's objectively Sam. I'm bringing back objectively.
That's Gandalf.